have never been this heated from a video's intro. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. As most of you know, when it comes to the Idaho 4 case, Chronicles of Olivia was personally invited to go and speak to the family of Kaylee. Kaylee apparently was following Olivia on TikTok, and all of that was verified and proven. So this was a very personal case for Olivia to be involved in. Now, she just dropped a new video, and this video is about what the residents of the area and their parents knew about what happened. Most of y'all know that besides the biggest mystery being that we're being told by law enforcement that this one man went into this house and took the lives of 4 people on 2 different stories of a 3-story house with a single blade. Other than that, there's the ridiculous fact that apparently all of this happened between 4:04 and 4:20 a.m., but there was not a 911 call until noon. That is 8 hours after that finally the cops were called. And there has been a huge suspicion as to why, especially since when the PCA came out, we found out that Dylan didn't really live on the bottom floor with Bethany like we all originally thought. Her room was actually on the 2nd floor. And that she not only heard things from the 3rd floor, but also heard crying and whimpering coming from the direction of Xana's room. And then we see that she put eyes on the guy that was in the house that night. And the reason why 911 apparently wasn't called until noon is because this Dylan girl was stuck in this shock phase. She was so freaked out that she locked the door behind her, and we don't know what happened after that. We don't know what she did behind that locked door until that 911 call at noon.
Her daughter says, by 10 a.m., she already knew the details of the incident on 1122 King Road.
That's still 2 hours before the 911 call. And we also heard from the very beginning that they called other people over to the house. How did law enforcement put it? Summoned friends over before calling 911. Okay, well, maybe in like a 20 to 30 minute time gap between waking up, freaking out, not knowing what to do, calling your friends over, and then calling the cops. This woman just said Dylan actually was in the downstairs room with Bethany, that they knew the guys that were there because there was more than just one. What? Now she says she doesn't know whether there was 3 inside and 1 outside as a lookout, or 2 inside and 1 outside as a lookout. And mark my words on this, because I've said this a million times already at this point. I have made a huge deal about the fact that the PCA lists out literally every direction, every little curve, every little 3-point turn, every failed parking attempt, but it never once mentions that the vehicle parked, as they were so detailed to even give the house addresses, down to the freaking house number, about where he was making these U-turns and failed attempts to park, but not an utterance of where the car was stopped between 4:04 and 4:20. And she's making it sound as if even the full extent of the injuries was even known to everyone before the cops were called. So what did they do? Just let people in there like it was a peep show? This woman is claiming that everything that she is saying to Olivia, she has told the FBI.
Was it 8 in the morning that the first phone call was made to, like, sorority sisters at Pi Beta?
Oh, okay. 8 o'clock in the morning, sorority sisters get called. 4 hours later is whenever they call the cops, but what else happens in between that timeline that we know of from the PCA? Brian Koberger leaves his apartment around the 9 o'clock hour and takes a 30-minute round trip to King Road, hangs around for 10 minutes, and then leaves.
And I'm not sure which of the girls said it, was they were getting rid of everything in the house. They were cleaning the house.
Okay, so Harsh Reality did mention this in a previous video I watched. I think it was either earlier today or yesterday, about how when the D word is brought up as something that could be involved in this case, that a bunch of people are like, oh, because these are like little college white kids. So no, for me, that was never out of the realm. I just didn't have any proof of it. But this kind of matches up with what he was saying on the subject, because one of his things was, well, what if she wasn't scared? And what if she wasn't frozen with fear? And they were really like cleaning out the house, getting things out of the house that wouldn't get them in trouble. And then, of course, another good point. Taking D's out of your house doesn't take 8 hours. You take your little stash and you go and you hide it somewhere, or you dump it down the toilet or whatever. You let someone else take it to their sorority or frat house. So why 8 hours? Why 8 hours? Why is it taking these people 8 hours from what happened to not only clean whatever they're scared of being found in that house when the cops get there out of it, but to also come up with the story to state whenever you could easily have just said, I was asleep, I just woke up, and this is what I woke up to? Why is there 8 hours of a whole bunch of theorizing and trying to make up a bunch of crap? If that's even what really happened. Because, man, at this point, I don't know. Oh, my God. So they keep bleeping out a female's name. And this female must know something, because it doesn't sound like they're talking about one of the surviving roommates whenever they're bleeping this stuff out, because they're stating Dylan's name and they're stating Bethany's name. This name is completely bleeped out. I want to know who this person is.
Because the narrative that was sent to my daughter at around 10 in the morning, 4 students were killed. They were high fives. They said that they were stabbed to death, and they
was the kid that discovered the bodies. It seems like multiple people knew about the injuries before the so-called person. So that's not true.
I can't imagine that Hunter Chapin would have not immediately called 911.
So Kim's making some points here about how Greek row works. But she brings this up because apparently in her version of the way things work when it comes to D sales, people, because there's not just open access to these places, even though obviously King Roadhouse was a party house. I believe we just had a report come out that the Friday before the incident, there was a big, huge party there that had like over 150 people. But she makes the point that in places like this that have all these structured things and all these rules, that if you're a D seller, you find someone that's already in there to help you with that.
What time were the 3 people there?
Apparently when the murders happened. But maybe Dylan thought they were just going to be shaking them up for the money.
What money? And remember, I mentioned earlier that in the beginning of this video, she said that there was people inside the house and another person outside the house like standing watch. They're calling this guy the creepy guy. Well, if Brian really is the guy, and he really did ask if anyone else was arrested, and he really does own that white Hyundai Elantra, he's a bit creepy, don't you think? It almost sounds like he was the guy outside, not in the house. So Kim just brought up the whole, when they were being watched diligently. Guys, this could really be like a D issue, because she's bringing up money, she's bringing up the fact that they were being watched. And remember how I mentioned if Kaylee was part of this, if Kaylee was actually part of the targeted situation, that this could have been taken as an opportunity because she was there last minute? It's kind of starting to go back to that for me. I'm just saying. I don't know. This is nuts. This is driving me nuts. This is making my brain literally melt out of my ears right now. And D's being involved would also explain why possibly his phone was pinged in that area 12 times prior. Now, granted, it would be a bit ridiculous for someone to move from Pennsylvania to Washington in June of 2022 to get their PhD, and within 2 months, by August 21st, whenever he was pulled over by the King Roadhouse for that seatbelt violation, he was already in the D business. Because that would make sense to me if he was like delivering stuff or going to drop off stuff that was supposed to be sold and then going back and picking up money and dropping off new product. That's a total possibility here, you guys. But why would you come all the way across the country for a PhD just to get into that kind of thing 2 months later? How would you even approach that as a criminology PhD person to start getting involved in that? Oh, I'm so confused.
He spent like 15 to 20 minutes outside of the apartment where that guy was shot, where he supposedly lived. I thought he worked in tech at UI Tech, or the tech department at University of Idaho.
Look, guys, I've been wanting to bring this up, but I didn't know how to bring it up, so I'm glad now I can bring it up. At the University of Idaho's websites, like their server went down the morning of the murders. So whenever I heard about this guy who ended up threatening to pew all these people that were his roommates that Brian Koberger's father mentioned to the police officer in the Indiana body cam, but somehow, because of all this stuff going on with this Idaho 4 case, no one even had heard about it. It had been like some time since the event that we finally heard it in that body cam footage. Like what, weeks? Some weeks? And earlier when they were talking about how he stopped in front of this guy's apartments and must have been stopped there for like 15 or 20 minutes, and she was like, what was he doing, picking him up? So that's referring to him going from his apartment to finally getting to King Road. Because remember, whenever he went back, it only took him 32 minutes, around 32 minutes, with even sitting around the house on King Road for about 10 to get from his apartment back, in the circle. But then whenever he's going that night, it takes him 3 times the drive. It takes him almost 45 minutes, if not longer, from 2:47-ish to around 3:30 before he gets into the neighborhood, actually. So that is like 20-ish, maybe even a little bit more extra time that he's taken. So yeah, for him to have stopped somewhere prior to finally being seen on camera, I mean, guys, they don't have to give us every GPS coordinate that they have from him, from all of his cell phone stuff. They only had to put in there the ones they deemed relevant. And best believe they were probably really smart about the ones they actually did put in the probable cause affidavit, because they knew that it was going to have to go public. And they can't let certain information out to the public. But yeah, theoretically speaking, that could mean that Brian allegedly swooped by and picked up that guy on the way to what happened that night. Okay, that girl's name that they keep bleeping just got brought up again. And from what I'm comprehending, there was another female in that house that left that house on King Road around 9 o'clock that morning. Isn't that whenever Home Skillet popped back up over there for half an hour and hung around for 10 minutes? I am like confused. Was he picking somebody up? Whoever little Miss bleeped out name is the one who fed Kim's daughter the narrative that she told Olivia that I am now reiterating to you. So if Dylan in the PCA is claiming that the noises that she heard woke her up around 4 a.m., and we know from what Miss Kim is now telling us that one of the sorority girls got a phone call at 8 a.m. sharp that morning, that's 4 hours after the incident. So how much do you want to go ahead and bet there was no falling asleep that night? If Dylan was really woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or if they actually did know the men that were in the house doing this and their story is complete crap, that means there's still 4 hours in between when this apparently happened and 8 o'clock when the first sorority girl was called. That's still 4 hours of missing time before the first contact outside of the house. There is more going on here. There's going to be more coming out from this, you guys, I'm telling you now. The FBI has known all of this from the very beginning. They've known how tainted and corrupted the crime scene was and the timeline was from the very beginning. Well, it explains to you why they were trying to keep the roommates' names under wraps so much. So I knew about Xana's mother being arrested. I didn't realize that it was just 3 days after the incident, and only based on the fact she had a warrant. But yet in the Dylan Rounds case, James Brenner had a whole warrant, and they allowed him to not only sit there and be aggravated on a property that didn't belong to him, but also clean out the barn and throw trash bags away during an active case. Yeah, sounds about right. There's a candle out in front of the King Roadhouse in a little memorial, and it has the Little Mermaid on it. If you know, you know. I think Name Bleep Girl is the one we found out was on the lease but never moved in, because Kim just said it. She just said, Bleep Name, you know, the one that didn't move in, I think she's got a lot of answers. So if she never moved in, and this is the same one that they're talking about left that same house at 9 o'clock that morning, again, same time Home Skillet made his little 30-minute round trip back there, why was she there? And while, yes, it's been verified by several different sources that Dylan's room technically was on the second floor, if that's true, then why, if this part's true, why was she down on the first floor with Bethany if she was down on the first floor with Bethany, if her room is really on the second floor? It's like she knew something was going to go down on the second floor, so she was trying to make sure she stayed out the way on the bottom floor, but then still told the cops that she was asleep in her room on the second floor? Guys, I'm so confused. Okay. It is now 1:45 midnight. And at this point, I have listened to the entire thing twice, and I have listened to it again as I was editing my little pieces together. Now, I'm not taking a lot out of this. My normal viewers know that I really do prefer to do shorter videos that are just valid, to the point, factual type information, and a lot of debunking type rumor things. Of course, giving my commentary. Now, I'm not editing this one down too much. I'm leaving my expanded thoughts in this one. If he showed up over there around 9 o'clock, or the car showed up over there around 9 o'clock, whatever, was in the area around 9 o'clock, then he would have seen all the people everywhere. And he would have known, well, that crime scene is now contaminated. I mean, he would have known. And I mean, yeah, it's a possibility. Maybe he was just the driver. I've thought about that several times. And maybe it was his knife, or he handled the knife at one point. But maybe he was just the driver. It's, to be honest, always kind of been my theory that whoever was in the house was dropped off when it was first in the neighborhood around 3:30ish. And yeah, it flew away around 4:20. But I'm going to bring up again for the 1000th time, the PCA never mentions the car parking. And it makes no sense to me. But then you have to question the DoorDash. Like, if the DoorDash showed up at 4 o'clock, and this was going on for like at least an hour, if my concept is correct, because the way that Kim lays it out is that there was someone inside and someone outside keeping an eye out. Okay, so DoorDash is ordered by who? The two survivors while their friends are getting... or by the people doing it? Like, that is so confusing. Unless it was ordered as a distraction. Unless it was ordered to make it look as if she was still alive around 4 o'clock. And she really wasn't. And maybe her phone was showing that she was on TikTok when she really wasn't. Which I've mentioned before, that it's a possibility that her phone showed up on TikTok at like, on accident, like from a struggle, it dropping and just like popping open TikTok. But what if this was going on before that time? Okay, I'm going to go back to the family member of law enforcement that came out and told us a whole bunch of stuff, which I think I'm going to do a whole video on this guy, bro, because I almost feel like he might not be LE family member. Like, we're going to talk about it later. I'm not going to get into it all again. Anyway, he mentioned about how Kaylee was on top of Maddie and all those things before we knew that that was like actual information, okay? There was a lot of stuff he actually came out and said, and then it was validated later in paperwork, which I've mentioned this before. Now, I know we've had fake audio, but we already know from law enforcement that they do have an audio. Now, they're claiming it's around the same time that Dylan's storyline is, but this guy, the TikTok guy, claims 3:38. Well, 3:38 is still after the white car was in the neighborhood. So if this was going on the whole time, like my theory is, then it wasn't Xana that ordered the DoorDash. It was just ordered in her name, maybe even from her phone. And it was done to make the world believe that she was still alive, or they all four were still alive around 4 o'clock. Wow, okay. I'm gonna stop because... Yeah, I'm going to stop, but I want to know what you guys think because my brain is kind of going everywhere right now. And I'm just saying, I know this is a little bit out of the realm of what I try to do here, but this makes sense to me when it comes to what could have actually happened. Just simply based on the fact law enforcement has told us already. Someone else called 911 from one of the roommates' phones, and it wasn't the roommate. And that there were already people there for quite a while before the cops got there. This all entails that. Oh, gee. All right. See y'all.